You're watching a YouTube video right now. To do that, you spotted it in your feed, clicked with a finger, a touchpad, or a mouse. Congratulations, you've just used sight and touch. Then your hearing and vision work together to funnel this information into your brain. And yes, we're still waiting for that smell-o-vision the 90s cartoons promised. This one would definitely smell of sandalwood and eucalyptus. To make this video, I had to rely on those same senses myself. I trust that your hearing and sight will interpret my work, letting your mind process, analyze, and maybe even chuckle at the arguments I present. But it goes deeper. To transmit this video to you, an almost unimaginable chain of human effort had to happen, each step depending on perception. From the Industrial Revolution to computers, LEDs, and the internet, we've managed to encode ideas into ones and zeros, shoot them across the world, and decode them back into something meaningful. And yet, despite this triumph, our senses have been under attack for millennia. And in many corners of thought, that attack has been stunningly successful. So let's dig into what's happening here and why you're all wrong about the attack on human senses. Our senses have been maligned by philosophers since the very beginning of recorded thought. What follows is only a small sample of the most famous attacks. In ancient Greece, Plato's allegory of the cave is one of the oldest and most enduring critiques. In it, people are chained inside a cave, able to see only shadows on a wall. They mistake those shadows for reality itself. For Plato, the senses show us only appearances, fleeting, distorted copies, while true reality consists of eternal, unchanging forms. In case you're wondering what that's supposed to mean, Plato thought there's a dimension containing perfect justice, beauty, chairness, and treeness. Yeah, philosophers used to be bad at their jobs. They still are, but they also used to be. In late antiquity, Saint Augustine reframed this skepticism in Christian terms. He admitted our senses can tell us about the physical world, trees, sunsets, music, but insisted that ultimate truth lies beyond the material. According to him, the mind needs to be enlightened by light from outside itself so that it can participate in truth. In other words, divine illumination, using the soul as a cheat code for knowledge. In the 17th century, Descartes radicalized the critique. He pointed out that our senses sometimes deceive us, think optical illusions, and asked, what if they deceive us all the time? He imagined a malicious, evil demon who could feed us a perfectly consistent illusion. How could we ever know whether our whole experience of reality was just a dream or deception? From this radical doubt, Descartes rebuilt certainty from the ground up, starting with cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. His point wasn't that reality is a dream, but that the senses can't provide indubitable foundations for knowledge. Let's pause for a minute and analyze the thought experiments. Could our entire experience be a dream? The problem is, dreams are actually nothing like reality. They're chaotic, illogical, inconsistent. In your dream, you're at a beach in Florida, except it's on Mars, and your sister is there, except she's Natalie Dormer, and also a lizard. Reality, by contrast, is consistent. It plays by rules. Unless you're doing a lot of drugs, it's not hard to tell the difference. But wait, you say, what about Descartes' logically consistent dream created by that cunning demon? Well, if the demon maintains physics perfectly, simulates every person with unique wills and consciousness, and sustains all the laws of reality without fail, then that demon just is the universe, or if you prefer, God. There's literally no difference between living in such a dream and living outside of it. It's just as real as anything else. If that's the case, then calling the creator of this reality a demon is pretty unfair, Rennie. No wonder he cursed you with fever dreams. With that little history tour over, let's move on to more modern arguments. In the 20th century, Alfred Korzybski gave the critique a scientific twist with his famous phrase, "The map is not the territory." What we perceive is never reality itself, but always a model. Our senses and our scientific theories simplify and translate the world. Useful, accurate, but not identical to the thing itself. For instance, reality doesn't contain red. There are electromagnetic waves between 620 to 750 nanometers. Our brain interprets them as red. But we can't prove that your red is the same as mine. All we can do is map both experiences to the same wavelength. Reality doesn't contain music either. It contains vibrating air molecules. We interpret them as tones, harmonies, timbres, and two people may hear the same wave differently. Even time, as we live it, is not time as physics defines it. Physics measures time as units between events. We experience it as elastic, dilating, or contracting with attention and emotion. The same goes for temperature, pain, motion. And this doesn't stop at sense data. Our scientific models themselves, even the most powerful ones, are incomplete. The standard model of particle physics, despite huge successes, still can't explain gravity, dark matter, or the matter-antimatter imbalance in the universe. Quantum physics describes a world nothing like the one we experience day to day. The multiverse theory might explain it, but that one is currently on hold due to the lawsuit against Marvel. Still, the reasonable part of our species credits our senses for the wonderful experience of being human. Thank you, senses, for allowing me to enjoy music, appreciate visual art, and hug my loved ones. The problems in physics? Well, there are a lot of exhilarating mysteries for the human race still to discover. But there's another camp, one that misreads the model problem. They argue,
our senses don't perceive reality itself. They create a model that distorts and omits. Therefore, we can't discover reality through the senses at all. We need other means.
To which I reply, in the immortal words of the great philosopher Kenobi, only a Sith deals in absolutes. Because the idea that we either know reality perfectly or not at all is nonsense. Our knowledge isn't just a model, it's astonishingly close to reality. Yes, we see red rather than 620 nanometers, but so what? We all know what blood looks like on a shirt. And if there's any doubt, we can build an oscilloscope. Our senses interpret and recode reality, but they still connect us to reality. Think of it this way. You're standing in your yard, looking at an apple tree. A sound occurs just below your hearing range. Does the fact that you didn't register the sound mean the apple tree isn't real? Of course not. That's absurd. And again, we can build instruments to detect that sound anyway, and use our senses to read the results. Take the dress from 2015. Blue and black? White and gold? It showed that perception isn't identical across people. Our senses actually are tricked. And that the claim we made earlier about color corresponding to an electromagnetic wavelength isn't exactly true. Turns out our brain also adjusts the color it perceives based on its surroundings. But it doesn't mean sight is useless. It means that there are some post-processing operations that our brain does with our vision that are usually helpful, but sometimes might lead to slight errors. It's not like humanity can't tell what color the dress is, by the way. It was blue and black. It's just this single picture of it that fooled some of us. And we still all agreed it was a dress. No one saw a hairdryer or a football stadium. The margin of error is small. Or take the Muller-Lyer illusion. Two equal lines look unequal. Our senses are tricked. Well, except we know that the arrow shafts are of the same length. Why? Because we invented rulers, and our senses correctly perceive the ruler. So even when something is tricking our senses, or some aspect of reality is outside our sense perceptions, we can still make devices to measure them. Remember the claim that reality must be discovered by means other than our senses. This idea has been one of the major drivers behind the historical attack on perception. People don't like being limited to what can actually be observed. Ghost hunters, for instance, have never seen a ghost, and yet millions remain convinced they exist. Science changed this dynamic. The whole point of science is not just to imagine possibilities, but to test them, to see if an idea can be disproved. That shift in thinking is why science only truly emerged in the last 400 years. Before that, if you had a clever idea and could sell it convincingly, people often assumed it must be true. The inner world, human will, imagination, conviction, was treated as reality itself. The external world, with its rules and physics, was considered little more than a stage for our minds to play on. And it's not as though this attitude has disappeared. Many modern spiritualists and gurus, Deepak Chopra being one of the most prominent examples, still preach it. Their line goes something like this: because our senses only give us a model of reality, the true reality must be hidden or perhaps doesn't exist at all. Instead, it is our will, our consciousness, that supposedly creates reality. To prove this, they often borrow from science, especially quantum mechanics, twisting it into claims that human consciousness collapses wave functions and shapes the universe. What makes these arguments especially insidious is that they begin with real scientific facts, but then leap to interpretations that are illogical, self-serving, and unfalsifiable. Religions have long offered a similar path. The idea of divine revelation proposes that while our physical senses are limited, the soul has access to God, a kind of spiritual perception. But notice the sleight of hand. This revelation is not treated as a sense, but as a higher authority, and it grants people permission to claim anything about reality, while demanding blind faith as a virtue. Nearly every religion is built on some version of this claim, so it's not as if humanity ever truly left this way of thinking behind. The problem with all of these approaches comes down to two logical flaws. 1. Just because our senses don't capture reality perfectly doesn't mean they don't capture it at all. Good enough knowledge is a real and powerful category, and where our senses fall short, we've built tools to extend and refine them. 2. Even if our senses can't give us ultimate access to reality, that doesn't mean anything else you propose automatically can. If A doesn't lead to B, that doesn't mean C does. It's possible nothing leads to B, that humans simply can't attain 100% accurate knowledge of reality. And that's okay. Which brings us to... Later, postmodern thinkers pushed the skepticism even further. Michel Foucault argued that what we take as knowledge is shaped by social institutions and historical discourses. What counts as valid perception is not just biological but political. Jean Baudrillard suggested that in modern societies, we often don't encounter reality directly at all, but instead simulations, signs and media images that no longer refer to any underlying reality, creating a hyper-reality. Jacques Derrida emphasized that even when we describe sensory experience, language mediates it, introducing slippage and instability. Meaning is never fully present, always deferred. Together, these thinkers don't just say, our senses are fallible. They question whether we ever have direct, unmediated access to the real in the first place. So, why are we even talking about this? After all, the arguments against our senses do have some merit, and we absolutely don't perfectly sense or understand our reality as of yet. Because these critiques often aren't about truth-seeking, they're about power, they're about becoming rich and famous, or even trying to undermine modern society itself. Notice how those attacking the senses still rely on them. Philosophers write books, gurus make videos, prophets preach sermons. They trust that your eyes and ears will process their message, and they have no problem flying on aeroplanes or using the internet, both built on sensory models they claim are untrustworthy. This hypocrisy is telling. To discover what someone really believes, look at their actions, not their words. Take prophets who claim divine revelation. If the claim is that our senses are too fallible for God to spread the truth by just appearing and talking, then do you know what this prophet's only consistent logical option would now be? It would be to do absolutely nothing. Okay, he now has the revelation in his mind, but it's locked there, inaccessible to others. Yet, without hesitation, those prophets preach to audiences, publish texts, and spread doctrine through, you guessed it, the very senses that God couldn't have possibly used. This shows that even they, in practice, believe in the reliability of perception. The attack on the senses is not a serious epistemological stance, but a rhetorical tool, a way to claim authority, gather followers, and insulate beliefs from criticism. And that is why you are all wrong about the attack on human senses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel. See you in the next one.